You asked a question about what nurses want patients to do or not do when they come to the hospital to have their baby. As a labor and delivery nurse, one of the first things I want people to know is that I'm on your side. We went to school to learn how to help you, not to hurt you. Sometimes people come in on the defense and resist everything that we know will help them and their baby be as healthy as possible. And we spend the first hour or two breaking down barriers and developing trust so that they understand that we're on their side and we want the same thing. We have the same goal. We want a healthy mom and a healthy baby, and we're always under the assumption that that's the patient's goal too. And we'll do whatever we can to make that happen. Another thing that I think is helpful is to go into the experience with a completely open mind, because so many different things can happen during labor and delivery, and the plan can change on a dime if something ends up happening with you or the baby. Like a low-risk pregnancy can become high risk. At the second, it becomes high risk. We can't always predict that emergent situations are going to happen. So I've had some patients that came in with like 28-page birth plans, and inevitably the universe has a way of coming around and biting them in the behind, and whatever they didn't want to have happen ultimately had to happen in order to get a good outcome. And people who go into their labor and delivery experience expecting and only being okay with plan A are likely to walk away disappointed or discouraged, or to have emotional trauma from their birth experience because things didn't go the way they wanted it to go. I've been answering questions for Intermountain moms for nearly 5 years now, and one of the first questions I ever got was a lady who said that her baby was 5 months old and she was struggling with postpartum depression because of a traumatic birth experience. And I've never forgotten her question because it's just really sunk into my heart, and I felt bad for her. But I asked her to share some more details about what happened, and she proceeded to describe a perfectly normal first-time mom experience. I couldn't pick anything out of that experience that should have been traumatizing, but it was for her because of lack of education. She had an idea in her head of how it was going to go, and it didn't go that way, so for her it was terrible and traumatic. And the last thing we want people to leave with is a sense of trauma or fear or lack of understanding of what happened. We want people to leave happy and excited about the fact that they have their baby now and they're healthy and well. Some stories are just a little more exciting than others. Like you could be the girl being run down the hall for an emergency C-section with your butt in the air, covered. And nonetheless, this is not an ideal situation, but I'm thankful we live in a day and age when we can safely do C-sections, and sometimes that's just the detour that's necessary, again, to help us reach our end goal of a healthy mom and a healthy baby. Another thing that I want people to know is that it's a myth that labor and delivery nurses want their patients to get epidurals. The fact is that we don't care if you get an epidural or not. We just want you to have a good experience. And when you come into the hospital, one of the first questions we'll ask you is, what is your desire for pain control? And if you're wanting an epidural, we'll help you get one as soon as possible. If you're wanting to go unmedicated, then we'll sit down with you and your support person and teach you about breathing and relaxation and positioning to help support you through labor. I think there's a few other tips that moms might find helpful. I think it's good to take a prenatal class at 28 weeks or so, between 28 and 32 weeks. That will help you be more prepared mentally for labor and delivery, and to know more of what happens and why we do what we do at the hospital in order to achieve good outcomes. If you're planning on an epidural, when you're packing your hospital bag, be sure to pack things that will entertain you during labor, because especially if it's your first, you may be sitting there for 12 to 18 hours, and so it's handy to have cards or books or movies to watch. I've had a few patients over the years bring a journal, and they and their partner write different things in it about what's happening during the experience, letters to their baby. And I think that's really touching and special, especially if they're able to read that with their child in the future. And lastly, I think it's really important to talk with your significant other and your family about who you want there for labor and delivery. I've been a nurse on labor and delivery for 11 years, and I have seen countless fights on the day that people are having their baby, and that should be a special day, and you shouldn't be worried about whose feelings are getting hurt. So if you set the expectation ahead of time, you make the decision about who's going to be there, and you make it clear to your partner and all of your family, then there won't be fights on the day you have your baby. When you're in labor, ask lots of questions. We love it when people ask questions because we want you to feel a part of the experience and to understand what's going on. A large part of my job is just spent educating, and I love that. I think the more you know, the better your experience will be. If you have more questions for me in the future, please feel free to ask them on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Intermountain Moms and recommend us to your friends and family too.